There you go.
Well, the point about the base is at the Black Swan Hotel is that we're going to have Jane Shattuck there, and her mother gave her information about a virus or some kind of intelligence which kills life off on planets. And her mother, way back in the 1980s or 70s, got word or some kind of channeling that this is what happens to life on planets. So it was a full-scale warning, and she's got a Navy background. So Jane has also written her own book, and she's an energy healer and an extremely advanced healer, and she's also got a lot of information of that. So this is going to be her first talk. Jane is a very distant relative of James Casbolt and was at the first bases at the barge. She sat at the front, and she met James when he was about 8. And then we're very honoured to have Vanessa Bates, who is going to be talking about her late son, Max. This is going to be about a year since the event, and so it's a big deal for Vanessa to come down, and this is an opportunity for her in an informal environment as an after dinner speaker, which means basically people, when you're going to go there, make sure you order your lunch, and get it in advance so that it's all ready for roughly 1 o'clock, so we don't have a situation where people are being served continuously through. So it gives the opportunity for Vanessa to have a chat and for people to have a quiet chat. There's a possibility that Marie Kayla will be there. Marie Kayla's had a robbery in her store. All of her personal possessions have been stolen. All the paintings that Gina, her daughter, had have all been stolen. And this is the kind of harassment she's still going through. It's absolutely horrendous. And it's really absolutely terrible. So, she's bearing up well, and so this might, whether she's there or not, it's entirely, totally relaxed whether she turns up or not, but it would be a situation where you'd have two mothers who'd have lost the closest and dearest kin, their children, over this targeting. There's then going to be David Monker, which I discussed, and then we went on to the spiders thing, which is a big thing up in the Lake District. There's ET stuff going on up there. A lot of England has got ET stuff, and basically they don't seem to care anymore whether you know about it or not. There's eyewitnesses at Boscombe Down, Porton Down. Some tradesmen told me they saw an ET in a warehouse, and it just, well, so what, and just closed the door. And it was walking about in broad daylight, and shouldn't have been seen, but who cares? They don't care anymore, really. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? There's whole cities and stuff underneath Wiltshire, for emergency use. And everybody's going to have their emergency underground shelters and things like that. So really, who cares? ET's around, there's a greys being seen coming out of the ground, reptilians in the area. And really, and then also the revelations of the first use of IVF IVF was designed to create these transgenic beings, whatever they are, for use on the lunar base. So this is the British lunar base, So all that's just happening, and really, who cares? It's just there. We've got our secret bases, our aliens. We're involved with all that. That was abundantly clear in 1993 when the whole Ray Wardle thing happened with the secret British agent who had actually been press ganged into working for British intelligence. It was they deal with the ETs all the time. There's different kind of ETs. There's bases off Ireland. There's bases in the Atlantic. There's bases in Wales. There's Cornwall under London. The big base underneath in the Thames estuary. This is what when Matthew Williams and I would occasionally cooperate. He had a contact called I think Steve Wilshire, not Wiltshire, but Wilshire. I think it's Steve. I think it's Steve. Anyway, he in the 1950s down at the Canvey Island, is it Canvey Island? Near South.
Yeah. Thames estuary. Yeah.
Thames estuary. Anyway, loads of CE2s, all sorts of stuff happening from the 50s. Meaning there must be a big fat ET base there, right in the Thames estuary. Holborn, underneath Holborn, and these bases are sort of shielded. There's a massive base between the M3 and M4. It's in full view, insofar as that there's got a sort of a space-time distortion field around it, which means if you go into the forest, you basically go into it and you suddenly come out of where you've just gone in. But from your own perspective, you've just gone in, but there's nothing there. So it's a shielded base. That's what James referred to, the Dulce base. He was on the bus, he took a picture of a cliff face and said that's where the Dulce base is. It's all shielded, you don't see a damn thing.
Wow.
So is there one there or isn't there? But you walk up to it, you get right up to it and you can break through the shielding. There will be spheres, certainly in the high mountain area where they sort of moved Area 50, so-called Area 51. People who've gone really up close, what they see is they'll catch it's not a hologram, but it's like a reality transmitter, because they can manufacture fake realities, and that's in the physics. I mean, the technology I don't really know too much about, but it's again using the term dimension is wrong, and when you go to another dimension, it's really a different focal energetic field, foci region, like a harmonic or something. So these bases in between the M3 and M4, it's just there. But when you walk in there to see it, you just walk straight in and straight out. You don't actually notice anything.
Wow.
Again, that was detected by Winkeach. He figured that out down at the East Field, where the crop circles occur, and earlier this year, when the crop was just literally just turning the field green slightly because it was just popping up, growing up. Helicopter number 45 was doing a really low measurement near the Eastfield area, and again I met another person quite recently who talked about Eastfield. They spray these things there, and it's to do with some kind of energy field there. And people have noticed there's some kind of portal there, but that's what they do. There's a portal. They cover it up with a crop circle just to study the behaviour and patterns of people. That's what I did in the 2007 Odecatcher crop circle, Odecatcher circle maker, where there's a 1,000-foot long Eastfield formation. It was absolutely fantastic. Winkeach was there filming, recording with a whole pile of cameras. They all suffered some kind of technical glitch. They all switched off. Gary King, who'd sort of come into the area at the time, it's my belief that Gary King was essentially parachuted in there because to deal with the information any information leakage that happened there about the crop circle. Because the day before there'd been a man from the RAF who sort of seemed to find himself standing in the middle of the bloody field out of nowhere, and so he also dropped his phone. Somebody picked up his phone, and looked through the phone. They're all full of RAF bases. And this guy was walking around looking for his phone, but he was, he couldn't have walked in there because he didn't have mud on his shoes. When he walked out, he got mud on his shoes, but he appeared out of nowhere in the middle of that area near the Knapp Hill Eastfield area. So something happened that night, and basically it seems that there's some kind of gate or dimensional force field there which operates, and then so for instance that was the energy discharge from those two realities came back together. It's a bit like balancing your compression when you surface, the air pressure when you land in an aeroplane, or the water pressure, you get the bends and things. You got to balance that out. So that energy discharge shut down all the wind's cameras. There's some question as to whether they just ran out of battery, but they all shut down, seemed to be at the same time. So he fixed them all, got up and running, and that was the problem about time compression, which happens at these crop circles when they're making them. Man-made crop circles have time compression and a reality field compression of some kind. It's when that thing collapsed. That's when the energy was sucked out of the crop circle zone, which when Gary King went down to see the crop circle, which had suddenly just appeared, because it had basically switched in from a different reality, because the reality field somehow collapsed or switched off or whatever. And when he went in there, he talked about how the crop circle was ice cold, so you can actually walk on the crop circle, which had just been laid down. But when it came back to our reality, the energy suckage caused an icy discharge. So that was for a brief period of time was frozen, and we had a frost on it. So according to Gary, that he was fascinated. He was running around, and the people who made the crop circle then came up actually and actually saw a win. But from their perspective, they didn't see the flash or the energy things. And Matthew Williams said, "Oh, so just somebody set fire to their hair. That was what caused the flash. That was and somebody had a cigarette. But so from their perspective, but Matthew's talked about this, about time when they made crop circles, they got an extra hour to finish off the formations, which means, and then there was a crop circle in Northern Ireland where it was just in long raw grass on a new build, and the people living in the house hadn't had the chance to create the garden. They lost an hour, so they all both when they went to work they were an hour late. So every clock in their house had lost an hour. Microwaves, mechanical clocks, watches, everything all lost an hour because they had been in a different time space for that, which resulted in the loss of an hour. So these things have time-space fields. You've got Tom Bearden, chanari.com or .org, does a whole lot of talks about scalar physics, and Kerry Cassidy's interviewed a gentleman from up north in England recently, and I forget his name, but he's quoting Tom Bearden's books. So I mean, all this is stuff that we knew about 25 years ago.
Yeah.
But people are only picking up on it now. So the ability to directly engineer space-time is in the physics. It's all there.